Having just come off an extremely successful World's Fair of Money in August, the American Numismatic Association jumps right back into the coin show season with their first ever Fall National Money Show, to be held October 13th through the 15th at the Lawrence Convention Center in Pittsburgh. The Summer A&A was one of the biggest coin shows ever held in the U.S. Right in the middle of the vast Boars floor was the A&A Museum Showcase, one of the show's most popular and impressive exhibits. And the Museum Showcase promises to be one of the star attractions of the Pittsburgh Convention as well. At the Pittsburgh show, the Museum Showcase will display an amazing collection of numismatic rarities from the A&A Edward C. Rochette Money Museum and private collections. Items making their Museum Showcase debut include a display of 2,600-year-old Lydian coins and a historic collection of artifacts from the French and Indian War. Rarities from the Rochette Museum include the Walton Specimen 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, the Idler BB Class 3 Specimen $1804, the world's first illustrated printed numismatic book published in Rome in 1517, and several rare national banknotes from the A&A BB collection of United States paper money. At the A&A in Chicago, we were treated to our own guided tour of the Museum Showcase, courtesy of curator Douglas Mudd. Perhaps you'll encounter Doug at the Pittsburgh Convention. He will be happy to give you the details of the many rare and historic numismatic treasures. For further information or to register for the show, visit www.nationalmoneyshow.com.
Good morning. My name's Douglas Mudd. I'm the curator of the A&A Money Museum. We have a really fantastic display today at the Chicago World's Fair of Money, and this is something we put together over a few months that includes some really spectacular pieces. So I'd like to take you on a tour this morning. So if you follow me, we're going to go first to a really, really special piece of American history. This is a medal of the Society of the Cincinnatus, which was a society created in the wake of the Revolutionary War to honor George Washington, who was compared to a Roman general, consul, who had been called to save the Roman Republic during a time of crisis. And when he did come out to save the Republic, he became the dictator. He had complete power. So what he ended up doing was saving the Republic, and afterwards he stepped down and went back to his farm to become a plain farmer. George Washington was compared to him because George Washington had the ability to become the king, if he had wanted to be, of the new American Republic. But he chose to be a regular American citizen. So the Society of Cincinnatus became a very high-status club, essentially, of officers that had served in either the French or the American armies or navy during the Revolutionary War. This particular piece was given to Nathaniel Greene, one of the great generals of the Revolutionary War. So it's got a tremendous amount of history. It's a beautiful piece. These were made in France and brought over and given to the various members of the organization. They're extremely rare. There's probably 12 out there today in private hands. If we continue onwards, we get to another spectacular piece. This is one of the earliest coins ever minted by the U.S. Mint. In fact, this may be the first cent produced by the United States Mint in Philadelphia in 1793. It is in spectacular condition, and it's just a really beautiful example of our early history, the work that was going on in the Mint. The flowing hair design, sort of wild. This is Liberty, looking a little wild, and at the time people were a little upset because they thought she looked disheveled and not quite civilized, but it was a great design, and the chain, which you see here, was designed to represent originally the 13 colonies and how they were joined together in strength. Unfortunately, by this time, which is 1792, when they were coming up with the design, the chain no longer had that meaning as much, and some of the citizens complained about it being a mark of slavery. So the chain design was changed, and the Liberty Head. This piece was in production only for a few months before the changes took place. So this is extremely rare and a beautiful example. In this case, we have one of the highlights of our exhibit. This is the 1804 dollar. Now this has been known as the king of U.S. coins, as you can see in the case. These coins were actually never struck at the time. The U.S. Mint at the time was producing dollars up until 1804. The problem is, no 1804 dollars were actually struck in 1804. They were struck with the 1803 design. This is because the dies at the time, as they are today, but more so, were very expensive to produce. So when you produced dies, you used them until they wore out. So the mint records do record that dollars were struck in 1804, but they were all struck with a 1803 dies, with a date of 1803 on them. Well, 1804 was the last year in which the U.S. Mint actually struck coins until 1836, dollar coins, that is. And with the result that during the 1830s, Andrew Jackson and the U.S. State Department wanted to improve its relations with the Far East, basically Southeast Asia and the kingdoms there. In order to do so, it was thought that having a complete typeset of U.S. coins would be a great present to give to these different monarchs in places like Siam and other countries in that region. This is because these monarchs were trying to emulate European kings and queens who almost all had coin cabinets. They all collected coins. So by producing these sets, it was thought that this would be a great way to open up relations. The problem was that we had records that 1804 dollars were struck, as well as 1804 eagles, but there were no 1804 dollar dies available to strike the coins. So the mint was asked to create 1804 dollars. When they did so, they were produced in 1834, 1835, and sent out as gifts. Well, U.S. collectors found out about this fairly quickly. By the 1850s, collectors were able to ask mint officials for 1804 dollars, and it turns out that they were willing to do so. The result was there are three types of 1804 dollars. They're the original type, produced in 1834-35. There was a type 2, which is a unique specimen, which is only held by the Smithsonian. This was produced on a Swiss shooting taller, and then we had that it was produced in 1858. Then we have the type 3. This is an example of a type 3 1804 dollar, which was produced somewhere in the late 1850s, 1860, 61 maybe. Produced specifically for collectors, and these coins are extremely rare. There's only 15 1804 dollars known today. Of them, there are I believe there's 6 of these in existence. So they're extremely rare, really special coins, and they have a really excellent story behind them. Well, if we go to the other side of this case here, we see another classic rarity of U.S. coins. Now this is a coin that never should have existed. Basically, in 1913, the design for the U.S. nickel was changed. Previously, it had been what was known as the V nickel or Liberty Head nickel design. The V refers to a large V that was on the reverse of the coin, which represented the Roman numeral 5 for 5 cents. Well, in 1912, that was the last year these things were issued. 1913, they were replaced with a buffalo nickel, which became a famous nickel design of its own. Somehow, as I like to say, on a dark and stormy night at the Mint, a Mint employee created 5 1913 V nickels. So he used the old design, altered the date to 1913, and produced these things. Nobody knew about these coins at all for basically until 1919, when a collector who previously had worked at the Mint, Samuel Brown, held a display at one of our ANA conventions, and in his display he had 5 1913 nickels. It created a huge sensation. Nobody had heard of these things. Nobody had seen these before, and people were really excited. One of the things that was interesting about it was, at the same time, he produced ads in various numismatic publications asking people to provide 1913 nickels to him, and he would purchase them if they had any. So in this case, he was offering to pay $500 in cash in 1919 for any nickels. Now it's interesting because he knew darn well that he had all 5 of them. What he was doing was creating a market for these things by offering to buy any of these 1913 nickels at $500, which was a princely sum. $500 was a huge amount of money in 1919. He was creating a market for these coins, and soon after his display, he did sell them as a set, and they ended up moving through different collectors' hands. Some famous people, Colonel Green, Eric P. Newman, and other people owned these at different times until the 1940s, when the set was split up. So these 5 coins ended up going to different locations. At the ANA, we are very fortunate to have had the Aubrey Beebe, who was generous enough to donate both the 1804 dollar and the 1913 nickel to the ANA during the 1980s. We've also been involved in putting the 5 coins all back together for the first time in 2003. So currently the ANA has on display at the headquarters in Colorado Springs 2 of these nickels. We only brought 1 of them here for the Chicago show, but this is spectacular. One of the interesting things about this coin is we have information that shows you how much they have appreciated over time, so that the Beebes, when they bought this coin in 1967, they paid $46,000 for it. Currently, the coin is insured for $2.5 million. Not a bad return on your investment for a nickel. One of the great things about these spectacular rarities that we've got on display is the individuals that have come forward and allowed the ANA to hold their precious items and display them for the public to see. In this case, this is Brian Hendelson of Classic Coins, who's been very generous in allowing us to display his special rarities, his special treasures. I'd like to thank all of the people, Bob R. Simpson and Legend Numismatics for their work, the Banco de Mexico, Jim Subak and Carl Subak for their generosity with the Thalers, and Mike Esfoto for the Eidmar and the Brutus Aureus that he's allowed us to do. These people allow us to really get out to our public and help meet our mission of educating the numismatic public about numismatics and about the wonderful stories and history behind it. I hope you've enjoyed this museum showcase. We bring these to all our major shows, so we'll be in Pittsburgh coming up in just a few weeks. I hope you get a chance to come out and enjoy some of the spectacular rarities.